Share भइसक्यो मिस स्क्रिन शेयर भइसक्यो
Okay, okay. Where is my desktop? Desktop on the Is it visible? Is it visible or not?
Sure, madam. It is visible.
Okay. Okay, I'll start my presentation. So good afternoon and welcome to my presentation entitled Plant Biodiversity Status and Conservation Efforts in Nepal. So today I will be dealing with the plant diversity status of Nepal and the conservation efforts for this plant diversity in Nepal, the threats and some recommendation for plant conservation. So as you know, this is the physiographic zones of Nepal, and we know that Nepal is a diverse country in terms of physiography also. We have high Himalayas, high mountains, middle mountains, Sivalik and Tarai. And overall, in global status, we have 0.1% of the land, but in that land, we have 3.2% of the plant diversity. So in the physiographic and bioclimatic zone, in high Himal, the coverage is 23%, which is above 5,000 meter elevation, and this zone, bioclimatic zone, is known as Nival zone, where we rarely find any vegetation. The high mountain, the coverage of the high mountain is 19%, and it is further divided into two zones, two bioclimatic zones, which is 4,000 to 5,000, which is alpine, and 3,000 to 4,000 is known as subalpine region. And in this region, we find the vegetation which are very cold tolerant vegetations are found there. Now, middle mountain, which covers 29% of the, which covers the 29% of the coverage, and the elevation is further divided into two types, which is 2,000 to 3,000 meter elevation, which is known as temperate zone, and 1,000 to 2,000 meter elevation is known as subtropical zone. And the temperate zone is the most exciting zone for the vegetation in Nepal, because we find many important species in this region. And the lower belt is divided into Sivalik and Tarai, which is above 5, which is further divided into 500 to 1,000 as Sivalik, and below 500 as Tarai. So this is the as a whole diversity of Nepal. The whole diversity of Nepal, we can say that we have more than 11,000 species residing in Nepal. More than 11,000 species means the species which is present in different group of plants, all the lower plants and higher plants. If you count all the plants, then it is more than 11,000 plants in our record, in the record of Department of Plant Resources. So in lower plants, we start from fungi. The number of species of fungi till now recorded is 2,467. Among these 2,467 species of fungi, we have 131 endemic species. So what is endemic species? You have to know that the endemic species are geographically restricted species, which is found only in the geography of Nepal. Now, in algae, we have 999 species till now recorded, and among them, 29 are endemic to Nepal. In pteridophyte group, the number of species is 583 till recorded till now, and among them, 3 are endemic to Nepal. Likewise, lichen, which is also known as jhau, number of species recorded till now is 792, and among them 55 species are endemic species. In bryophyte, the number of species recorded till now is 1217, and among them 31 bryophyte species are endemic to Nepal. And going to the higher plants, the number of species of gymnosperm recorded till now is 26, but there is no endemic species in gymnosperm group, while in the angiospermic group we have recorded 5,309 species till now, and the endemic species among them is 293 species. And the medicinal plants, among them the medicinal plants recorded by Department of Plant Resources till now is 819 species. So among them, there are some protected plants. Some are protected by IUCN Red List. In IUCN Red List, we have total 9 species of plant, where we have 2 endangered species, 5 vulnerable species, and 2 nearly threatened species. So, and in CITES appendices, we have 3 appendices in CITES. So CITES 1, we have 2 plant species in CITES 1, and in Appendix 2, we have 11 species and group, and in Appendix 3, we have 4 species, and altogether 17 species are protected by CITES. So these are some of the plants you can see in Appendix 1, which is restricted for trade worldwide. The Paphiopedium species, which is a very rare orchid, is in Paphiopedium, which is in Appendix 1. And in Appendix 2, there are some species and group of species where we have Rauwolfia serpentina, Podophyllum hexandrum, Dulvergia species, Scythia species, Cycas pectinata, Dulvergia, Dioscorea deltoidea, Euphorbia species, Orchidaceae, whole Orchidaceae family, and Taxus species, and Nardostachys grandi Jatamasi, which is also known as Jatamasi. And in Appendix 3, which is which has regulated trade from Nepal, and Appendix 2, it has regulated trade. If you can take the permission, you can trade those Appendix 2 species. In Appendix 3, we have Meconopsis regia, Nitum montanum, Podocarpus nerifolium, and Tetracentron sinensis. So there are some species which is protected by government of Nepal, and these species which are protected by the government of Nepal is altogether 19, and the species banned for collection, use, sale, distribution, transport, and export. In angiosperm, it is Juglans regia, Dactylorhiza hetazaria, and Picrorhiza curua. Now, species banned for export except for processing. If you process them, then you can export those species. Those species are Cinnamomum glaucascens, Cordyceps sinensis, Rauwolfia serpentina, Valerina jatamasi, Valerina wallic, and in gymnosperm we have Abies spectabilis and Texas, species of Texas. And in Bryophyta, all the lichens are banned for export without the processing. Now banned for harvest, transportation, and export for commercial purpose. They are Acacia catechu, Bombax, Ciba, Dulvergia latifolia, Michaelia champaka, Pterocarpus marsupium, and Soria robusta. So all these plants has to be conserved for the future, for the humankind, for the life, well-being of the human being. That's why we have some efforts through government of Nepal, and in these efforts, the first effort is the policy effort. What we have done in the policy sector for the conservation of these plant species, how we are sound in the policy sector. We can see this by the Constitution of Nepal. Constitution of Nepal has also given envisages that we should live in a safe environment, and the forest policy, herb and anti-FP development policy, Forest Act, Forest Regulation, CITES Act, CITES Regulation, Sustainable Development Goal, 2030 15th periodic plan, Nepal biodiversity strategy and action plan, species conservation plan, in situ and ex situ conservation guideline prepared by the Department of Plant Resources are some of the policy documents which are very, if they are implemented in a very effective way, they are very effective for the conservation of plant resources of Nepal. So there are certain international policies as well, like Global Strategy for Plant Conservation, GSPC, Convention on Biological Diversity, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Flora and Fauna, Convention on Wetland of International Importance, Nagoya Protocol on Access to Genetic Resources and Benefit Sharing, International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. We have become a party of all these conventions. Now, there are certain institutions which work for the conservation of the plant resources, and the major part is played by the Ministry of Forest and Environment, Department of Forest and Soil Conservation, Department of National Park and Wildlife Reserve, Department of Plant Resources, and in this federal system we have provincial Ministry of Forest and Environment looking after our plant resources, local government, NGOs and INGO, and community organizations. So how we are conserving the plant right now, then what type of conservation are going on in Nepal right now? So we are conserving plant in two ways, that is ex situ conservation and in situ conservation. In situ conservation says that conservation which is done in their natural habitat, the conservation of plant resources in their natural habitat is known as in situ conservation, while if the plant resources are brought from the natural habitat and if they are conserved elsewhere, like botanical garden, that conservation is known as in ex situ conservation. For ex situ conservation, we have 11 botanical gardens in Nepal, which covers 642.2 hectares with elevation grade ranging from 110 meters to 2500 meters. And we are conserving 1022 species of plant in our botanical garden as ex situ conserved plants. And among them 10 are endangered species. So we have National Botanical Garden at Godavari, Brindaban Botanical Garden at Makwanpur, Tistung Botanical Garden at Tistung, Mountain Botanical Garden, Daman, Dhanusa Dham Botanical Garden, Dhanusa, Maipokhari Botanical Garden, Ilam, Dhakeri Botanical Garden, Bake, Mulpani Botanical Garden, Salyan, Ditachor Botanical Garden, Jumla, Devaria Botanical Garden, Kailali, World Peace Botanical Garden, Pokhara. Through these botanical gardens, all these are the spots from east to west, and in different elevation gradient we have our botanical gardens which are focused on the ex situ conservation of the plant resources. So these are some of the photographs of our botanical gardens, like National Botanical Garden Godavari, Ditapchor Botanical Garden Jumla, Maipokhari Botanical Garden Ilam, Mulpani Botanical Garden Salyan. So in ex situ conservation, we also conserve the plant resources through the conservation of seeds in our seed gene bank, which is located in Godavari. Till now, we have been able to conserve the viable seeds of more than 150 species of plants in that seed bank. And regular viability test is going on for the conservation for the future generation or for future use of those species which are, and the main focus is on endangered and endemic plant which has to be conserved for future generation. And the DNA barcoding program is also going on, and in this barcoding program we have already barcoded more than 100 specimens, not species but specimens, and in those specimens we are focusing on endangered and endemic plant along with the economically important plants. So in vitro, and the other way of conserving in situ condition is in vitro condition. In vitro condition means conserving the plant resources in laboratory condition. So we have conserved, we are conserving the germplasm of more than 32 species regularly, which are mostly orchid species and economically important species. And we have developed more than 125 protocols of more than 125 species of plants for the in vitro germination and in vitro multiplication of the plants. So in situ conservation, I have already told you the in situ conservation means the conservation which is where the plant resources are conserved in their natural habitat. And for this in situ conservation, we have national park, wildlife reserves, and conservation areas. And total number of national park, wildlife reserve, and conservation area is 20, where 12 national parks are there, 1 wildlife reserve, 1 hunting reserve, and 6 conservation areas are already in our country, and which occupies 23.4% of the total area of Nepal. So we have a forest protection zone, 10 forest protection zones where important species are being protected, and we have national forest which are government managed or community managed forest which are being managed by the community or the government for the protection of these plant species. So the next way to protect the plant species is plant database. We should have the basic database, otherwise we could not make the further future plan for the plant conservation. So this is the basis of conservation. For this, we have National Herbarium at Godavari, and in that National Herbarium, we have plant database of more than 1,70,000 specimens of plants. And among those specimens of herbarium or a specimen of herbarium specimens, 1,28,000 herbarium specimens are already digitized, and 1,13,261 herbarium specimens are already uploaded in www.plantdatabase.cart.np. And from this database, everybody can go through the digitized image of the plant, herbarium of the plant. Now, documentation of flora. So this is one of the project which is being implemented through Department of Plant Resources, Tribhuvan University, Royal Botanical Garden, Edinburgh, Tokyo, University of Tokyo, which are jointly implementing long-term flora of Nepal project. And so far, volume 3 has been published among the 10 volume. Among the 10 volume flora, volume 3 is already published, and from our department we have published the online account of more than 96 species of plant of volume 10 monocot. So other initiative is Global Taxonomic Initiative Nepal. The Global Taxonomic Initiative Nepal was established with the objective of developing national taxonomic capacity on flora and fauna and developing network of national institutions working in this sector. The activities are to be carried out by the 11-member steering committee coordinated by Department of Plant Resources. So these are the efforts for the development of the plant database, so that we could make our plans and projects for the conservation of the plant resources. So these are some of the photographs of our herbarium of the flora volume 3 and some of the digitized herbarium specimens. So now other efforts which we are giving for the conservation of plant resources is through awareness and knowledge management. So what we are doing, we are organizing many awareness campaigns and training programs at the training programs from university level to the grassroots levels. We are having publications, scientific publication, as well as the general awareness publication for the local people, and we are disseminating it through our website www.dpr.gov.np, www.tkdl.gov.np, and www.floraofnepal.gov.np. And we are organizing many workshops and conferences so that we could emphasize the importance of the conservation of plant resources of Nepal. So these are some of the publications we have. So what are the threats now for the plant biodiversity? So these are few of the threats which I think is most important for the conservation of plant biodiversity in Nepal. First is the overexploitation of the economically important plants. So what we are doing is we are overexploiting the economically important species. That's why some of our species has gone under endangered list, some are gone on the commercially threatened list, some are vulnerable. All the economically important plants are now, they are decreasing in number, and their conservation is the must. After that, the second threat is the invasive alien species. We have till now we have recorded 26 specimen of invasive alien species in Nepal, and due to these invasive alien species, the habitat change for the natural species, they change the habitat for the natural species, and due to that, due to their colonization, our natural plant species are going to lose in near future. So this is also one of the most important threat for the conservation of the plant diversity. So next is the habitat loss, destruction of the habitat due to deforestation or due to the developmental work is another challenging issue which has to be addressed, or it is a challenging threat right now, because the development is our most important need. That's why we have to consider the diversity as well while we are doing the development work. Now next is the forest fire. Recently we have heard of massive forest fire throughout the country. So this forest fire has to be prevented to save these important plant species. Now another one is the climate change, and it is an international issue and the global issue. Due to climate change, we are losing many of our species, and some species may migrate to the upper elevations, and their phenology may change, and their effect may diminish due to the climate change effects. So what are my recommendations? My recommendations are, first is the policy reform. We should have some emergent policy reforms in our to conserve our plant resources. For that, we have already drafted a Plant Resources Act, and it is under discussion. So it is the must for the conservation of our plant resources. In that Plant Resource Act, we have also envisaged important plant areas so that we can conserve our important plant species in their habitat, and the reintroduction of the plant species. These things has been already envisaged, and we have kept in the Plant Resources Act, but it is yet to be ratified. Now, ratification of the Cartagena Protocol, it is most important for the biosafety issues, and Access and Benefit Sharing Act is also one of the policy which has to be reformed, which has to be formed very urgently, so that we could get benefit from our plant resources. Institutional reform, strengthening of conservation infrastructure. Our conservation infrastructure has to be strengthened, just like botanical garden, seed gene bank, national herbarium, and many other institutions has to be reformed so that we urgently conserve our plant resources. And the second is the extension of botanical garden. We have already seen we only have 11 botanical garden, but we have to have botanical garden in all the elevation gradient and all the representing all the phytogeographic areas. So human resource development, so it is the most lacking aspect of the institutional reform. So the human resource development is the most urgent need, so that our manpower are trained and they are aware and they are capacitated. They have capacity to for the conservation of our plant resources. Now, implementational reform. So what we can do right now for in the implementation aspect is mainstreaming plant diversity issue in operational plan. We have operational plan, and we also keep some biodiversity sections over there, but it is not enough right now. What I see is not enough and not rightly implemented in the field. Next is enhancing the capacity of the concerned stakeholder. All the concerned stakeholders should have the capacity to identify the plants and for the further conservation reforms. So proper implementation of the species conservation plan. We already have specific conservation plans, but they are yet to be rightly implemented. And declaration of important plant area for the conservation of important plant resources. Thank you. That's from me. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. It was indeed. Move on to the discussion session. If anybody have queries and questions, they can ask they can share with Sangita Swar, ma'am. And please raise your hand, or you can type in the message, or drop in the message box of online. Who are online, they can drop into the message and can raise your hand. Thank you. Okay, our one participant, Preksha Yogi, is interested with man's topic, and as stood up to discuss the question, and you can ask your question.
Ma'am, you have mentioned about the 26 invasive species found in Nepal, but you did not mention the on which area of Nepal that invasive species is found exactly. Will you please clarify the on which part of the Nepal that species are colonized?
Thank you for the question. So the species which we have to the endangered species, particularly you are saying, I think there are particular species which are found in the alpine or temperate zone, like Nardostachys grandiflora. You know that, I think it's Datamasi. And Dactylorhiza hetazaria. Dactylorhiza hetazaria is 5 only. I think you know that those plants are found in the high Himalayan region. High Himalayan means more than 3,000 meter. You have to go more than 3,000 meter to find those plants. While the other species like Rauwolfia serpentina, Cycas pectinata, which is only found in Nepal, Cycas pectinata, those species are found in the Tarai belt or in the Churia belt. So it is very specific to the species which you are talking about.
Okay, ma'am, my name is Gauri Shankar Bhandari. I also have one question for you.
Yes, sir.
there are 19 protected species of plants in Nepal.
Yeah.
My question is that how these plants were selected as protected species?
So
Plants as protected
these
species of
species,
Nepal.
you have seen
Thank
the
you.
names also, I think, Gauri Sankar. The names are also not up to date right now. It was I think it was in Forest Regulation 2052. It was protected in according to that regulation, and it has never been changed. It is the same right till now. Have I answered?
Ma'am, thank you for your answer. Are there any programs currently being implemented by DPR for periodic assessment of these protected plants?
Yeah, sir. Very good question. I have missed that part. We are having the program of, we are having regular program for the population status. We are population status of Nardo-Stachys jatamasi is already done, I think. And now in these two or this is second or third year, we are having the program on orchids, and especially dendrobium, the most traded orchids.
Okay.
And we have also made the
Thank
NDF for the CITES Secretariat.
Okay, thank you. Now I have one question with Miss. You have mentioned Jatamasi as a CITES appendix, and I would like to know in which appendix is Yarsa Gumba present, and what are the policies for Yarsa Gumba protection and care in Nepal?
So Yarsa Gumba as such is not protected in any category right now, but you have to pay the royalty. Royalty is has to be paid, which is there categorized in the forest regulation. That's all. Not right now. We don't have any regulation for the Ophiocordyceps or Yarsa Gumba or Ophiocordyceps. It can be traded.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And anybody have a question they can put in the anybody question from online also. Okay, thank you, Miss. Now we have come to the end of the talk program. At last, I would like to request Mr. Gauri Shankar Bhandari, Research Coordination of Resources Himalaya Foundation, for his vote of thanks and concluding remarks. Thank you. Gauri Shah.
Okay, so I'm sorry. There was interruption due to internet problem, connection problems. Thank you, Ganga ma'am. Okay, thank you, Sangeeta madam, for your wonderful presentation on the status of plant diversity of Nepal and the conservation efforts. Thank you for accepting our invitation and presenting your work to this 120th series of PYCF. PYCF was initiated in 2012 in honor of late Dr. Prahlad Yonjan, who founded Resources Himalaya Foundation. PYCF is a platform for advocacy and knowledge sharing. It is usually conducted on the first Friday of every month. However, we have conducted this month's event on the occasion of Global Environment Day today. In PYCF, talks and discussions are held on topics of public interest related to environment, biodiversity, livelihoods, and the sustainable use of natural resources. I hope the participants of this 120th series of PYCF are greatly benefited by listening to Sangeeta ma'am's talk. Thank you, ma'am, once more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody for your kind sincerity in the program. Now we have come to the end of program. Thank you.